been a great turnout. I think we held a meeting here a couple months ago with the residents from Taylor Lake, and I think you guys outdrew them. So, but as I was told before the meeting, Fairoaks is the best, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, we appreciate the good turnout. I know that we put things indoors and we sent out letters. Some of you are directly affected. Some of you somewhat indirectly. I think we put things in every door because we know that you're such a strong homeowners association that we wanted even owners that maybe weren't necessarily directly affected to have the opportunity to participate in this evening. And so we just do appreciate everyone that's here. I just want to recognize a few people. You're going to get to hear a lot from our city engineer, Tom Sissels, with Oates Associates from down in Collinsville. But just so you know, Tom's a Triad kid and lives here in town, and we don't hire him just because of that. He's a really skilled engineer too, and so we really appreciate all the work that he put into it. Our city administrator's here, Jeff Sullivan. If you can give away, we've got several aldermen with us. Tim Greenfield, who represents the 4th Ward. Everybody wave, Tim. Sam Italiano from the 2nd Ward, and then your 2 aldermen from the 1st Ward that I'm assuming represents all of you. Dan Jackson and Regina Hendrickson are both here, so we appreciate them being in attendance. In the end, our idea is that you give us some feedback, both orally tonight with your questions, and then on the comment form for us too. Please put, if you like something, put it on there. If you think that there's a concern that something might not work, or there's something that's particular to your property that as Tom's working through potential design engineering that you just want him to know about and or account for, but you don't have to bring it up in front of the whole group, note it on that form. And then good contact information too, because we feel like we're going to have to reach out and get some easements. And we've talked about easements being an issue with all of this. So for example, if you live on Fairoaks or you live on Shade Rest, and and the end of your property goes to the creek, I'll just call it that, right? The creek. There are no city easements through there. That's your private property. And so for us to do something about that, we're going to have to turn a little of that into access for the public, for us, the city, to get in onto your private property. And so with this project, we expect that there will be some significant easement acquisition we need to do, some for permanent maintenance potentially, and some temporary easements that will allow, if we take this project to bid, to allow us to get in and our workers do the work. And so, we want that contact information on that form, a good cell phone number, or if you do answer your home phone, a good number that we can get a hold of people, because we'll probably be out knocking on your doors, I hope, here in the near future to acquire some of that. I know your aldermen have told us a lot about the problems out in Fairoaks. I know we've researched it a little bit. I'm sure Tom will comment on this a little bit more. But having kind of researched the history of this, it would appear that your subdivision was kind of one of the last subdivisions brought into the city before the state made significant changes to the stormwater drainage codes, the need for things like detention ponds. And then obviously, once the state adopts something, it always takes the cities a little bit longer to adopt that as well. And so we're very aware. Tom's going to show you some pictures that he's got. I'm sure you all have pictures of the creek running, of significant drainage, and sitting in backyards and whatever else. But we do want to thank the Blooms, who live just to the north of you. We've spent a significant amount of time, and that's been the delay in taking it so long to get to here, to get an option on, I think it's 3 acres of ground. Is it 3? Is it 2? 1. It's just 1 acre of ground. Sorry, 1 acre of ground to get an option on that to do the plan that we want to do required us to get that ground. And so I hope you appreciate that when we do that, we don't want to just scream from the rafters, hey, all of you are in the same boat and you guys will only be saved if they let loose of that ground. That always would just drive up the price. And so we've been spending a significant amount of time. They've been very gracious. We've worked with them to acquire an option that we need to exercise by April 30th if we want to do this. And we have budget money to acquire the ground this year, so we do have to move on that by April 30th. And so we're doing some geotech engineering testing to make sure that that ground is suitable to what we want. We're pretty sure it will be because there's a detention pond just to the north of there that you drive by probably to your house every day. And so we feel pretty good, like, you know, that's going to work. We're in the process of doing that. And then Tom's going to describe, you know, kind of everything else that we have planned in regards to that. But I just do want to thank you guys for your patience. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Tom kind of tell you what's going on, you know, how we've studied it, and what we think we can do to bring a solution to you guys. So, Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So the mayor introduced me as a triad kid. So
Still triad, yeah.
I wish that was true. I'm from Triad. I'm not a kid anymore. I've been doing civil engineering for 20 years, and I almost have a kid that's in Triad. Almost. One more year. So today, our agenda, go ahead, Mayor. What I want to walk away with the meeting today is I hope everybody gains a little better understanding of what the drainage issue is and what causes it. And I hope everybody gets a better understanding that what the order of magnitude is of the problem, and that the city has developed some potential solutions and explored some. And then I want to talk at the end about the next steps in the process. So that's our five-point agenda. Those 5 things I want to try to cover tonight. So this is an aerial photograph of your subdivision. You're all familiar with where you live, and if you're along the creek that is the area of concern, that is the red line on the slides. That's the swale. It used to be a swale. Now it looks more like a creek in the backyards of the houses. I'm going to call it along Fairoaks Drive. So this was a photo I took on December 26, 2015. Again, we're understanding the issue. This is kind of where, this is the map key I just had up there. And I'm right here, and I'm looking from Troy Fountain Road onto the Blooms property. So there's a big, wide, maybe a foot deep stream of water in the Blooms property coming from the Meadowbrook side of Troy Fountain Road and then heading up to Fairoaks Subdivision. It's in photo 2 on the same day. Sorry. Back up. Oh, he did. Never mind. So photo 2 the same day. Now I'm in those backyards, and I'm looking back toward the outflow. As that water, which was wider at Fairoaks, now it's more channelized and deeper and running faster. And then the next slide, just a little farther upstream, and you can see the backyard and the swale, which is about head high on me, so it's about almost, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 foot deep. Can you play that video? It's actually a video, and kind of just to give you an idea of how fast the water runs.
Not a surprise. That's my backyard.
Kind of took that it's not a still frame, so it kind of gives you a better idea of how fast the water is running. And I know that you all have your own pictures and your own experiences, and I've been back there. I had 4 different sets of photos I could have picked from. They all look pretty similar. I'm sure you even have some that might be worse, because I get there during certain storms, but maybe not the worst one. December 16th was a bad storm though, but that was around a 15-year storm. But I don't know if I hit it right at the peak when I was there or not. It kind of matters. But anyways, that puts the framework on what the problem is. So now let's talk about what causes the problem. So I found this interesting aerial from 1941, and I put a box around where Fairoaks Subdivision is. And this is kind of interesting. I had to draw in Troy Fountain Road because I don't think it was really called that or there. I had to kind of draw on Country Lane where it kind of is. Blackjack Road looked like it was there. 40 was there, but it was wasn't like it is now. There was a railroad there, and there's South Main Street. So what I wanted to show you is, do you see this? See these shadows? Those are creeks or swales that were already running up to your subdivision. Next picture there. So that was 1941. This is 1991, and if I recall correctly, your subdivision was built or was being designed in 1991 and being built shortly after that. None of these roads are really there. They're superimposed on the Google image. But this is showing the layout for what will be Meadowbrook, and this is showing the layout for what will be Fairoaks. And in your case, Fairoaks is going to be built really shortly. But again, see there's creeks running up through here, and I think the next picture is going to blow in there more. And I highlighted where those creeks are in yellow. This is now the big outfall from Meadowbrook that we're doing a drainage project on now. It kind of runs around your subdivision. And this is a smaller outfall through a different area of Meadowbrook, and this is the one that runs right through behind Fairoaks Drive. So I wanted to give you a framework. There was already creeks and drainage that runs through there back in 1941 and definitely in 91. When I'm zoomed in here, we have better aerial image then. Go ahead. So this is where this should say now. This is a current aerial picture. And it shows how the drainage runs now. Like I said, this is the big outfall from the lake in Meadowbrook. And this is the route of the storm sewer in Meadowbrook, and then how it comes across the Bloom property and through. So substantially, the drainage swales are still in the same location they were. They're just now developed, and in some cases in pipe systems, until they get to the Bloom property. So that kind of puts in framework where everything's at, I think. Go ahead. So there's your subdivision again, and then here's Meadowbrook again. This is the actual drainage area. The dashed lines around, that's the actual drainage area that contributes to the creek behind the yards in Fairoaks Drive. In Meadowbrook, there's 19.5 acres. Of course, quarter to third acre lots. Subdivision that drains underneath Royal Town Road. And in Fairoaks itself, your whole subdivision drains there too. 16.1 acres. So in total that is, what, 39? 35? Okay. So what's the problem? The order, that's what the problem is there's all that land back in 1941 was undeveloped, and it was going there already. But now in 2017, and I know you've been having a problem before 2017, but in 2017, that same area is now developed with homes, and like the mayor said at the beginning of the presentation, none of that is detained. None of that runs through a detention pond right now. So, order of magnitude wise, I'll get into this in a second. The problem's erosion, because there's more water going through there and it's going through there faster. The cause, the developer filled in back in the 90s to make the yards nicer, to grade your yards nicer. The developer did do some regrading and filling in of that natural swale that I showed you that went through that Fairoaks already. It was not, in 1991 when it was built, it was made more gradual. subdivision layout has backyards that are very close to where that natural swale was. Much more closer than we would allow on our new subdivision ordinance that we're going to be voting on
Monday night.
Monday night. We require more of a setback from yards to creeks in the future. And like I alluded to earlier, 35.6 acres of developed land is not detained now. That's more water and higher velocity. And to give you an example of that, here's your order of magnitude. Now, there's a lot of data here, so to avoid data overload, I highlighted just 2 rows. 2-year storm, that's a storm that's supposed to occur every other year. A 1-hour storm event, it's a hard rain for 1 hour. We just had one of those, right? Hard rain for 1 hour. Back when it was farm ground, that would have produced 13 cubic foot per second of water. Because water, when it hits dirt ground, soaks into the ground. Better. Water that hits paved areas and home roofs and gutters and goes into storm sewer systems, more water runs off rather than goes into the ground. So in a post-development scenario, a 2-year, 1-hour storm produces 30 cubic foot per second. So the before 1991 is 13 cubic foot per second. Post Meadowbrook being done is now 30 cubic foot per second. That's a 131% increase in water. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the bigger storms, the 100-year storms, the longer duration storms. Pre-development, that would produce 25 cubic foot per second. Post-development, that would create 29 cubic foot per second. So what I'm telling you is, and that's only a 15% increase. What I'm telling you is the shorter duration storm, the shorter, more common duration storms are more of a problem, or changed more than the longer big storms.
Now, a 100-year, 24-hour event, that's more like a hurricane, tropical storm like Irene or whatever else, right?
That's a long duration storm,
8
it
inches.
rains for a day.
Yeah, 8 inches in a day.
We haven't seen one of those in my career yet, and hopefully we won't. But I just wanted to put it in framework that the reason you're having problems more frequently than just more frequently than just once a decade or whatever, is because the storms that cause your problem, because your watershed's relatively small, they're affected by shorter duration storms more. And guess what? Those are the kinds we get more often. So that's my point with that. Just to show you that it's probably common for the creek behind those houses to come up like that, because that's the type of storm that affects it the most. So we've explored solutions. Been exploring them for a while. Like the mayor said, we were in negotiations with the Blooms for a while. So we've had solutions in mind for a while. And today we sit here ready to present them to you. So we could it would take a 48-inch diameter pipe in your backyard to convey that much water in a 10-year storm. If we did that, we could restore backyards, right? Because the water would be underground. It would address the symptom, which is erosion, but it wouldn't address the cause. The cause is still that all that area is developed and undetained and running through the yards. So if we just put a pipe in your backyard to restore your yard, we're basically kicking the proverbial can down the road to the next property. As soon as the water would come out of the 48-inch pipe at the end of Fairoaks, we would have high velocities, a lot of water coming to the next property.
Is that where you built the lake?
There's places, different places you can build the lake. The other thing is, permit agencies don't like putting big creeks like that underwater anymore, underground anymore, and the Corps of Engineers may not even allow that to happen.
It's your property.
They don't really encourage putting big creeks like that underground anymore because of habitats and species, and they just don't promote that anymore. If we applied for a Corps of Engineer permit, it would be an individual permit, and it would take, at least from my experience, 2 years to get through. They would scrutinize it that much. So on to option 2. The problem is the water's undetained, so solution 2 proposes to build a detention pond to catch the water coming off of Meadowbrook, detain it, let it out of the detention pond slower than what it currently is coming across there now. Basically, we want to restore the flow that runs through there back to its natural pre-1991 flow rate. That's the way we would design a subdivision nowadays. That would cost about $200,000 for the pond itself, and I'll show you where that would be. It would cost $100,000-ish. That's kind of a loose estimate for now. This is all conceptual. To regrade the backyards along Fairoaks Drive. But that $100,000 we've discussed with Madison County, that is eligible for a Heartlands Conservatory grant, which you guys may have got paperwork for that in the mail. When was that about?
Yeah, the Heartlands Conservancy, Chris, real quick, Heartlands Conservancy applied on behalf of Madison County for an IEPA grant to use on what's considered the Upper Silver Creek watershed. I don't have a graphic on what the Upper Silver Creek watershed is, but I'll just tell you it's everything along Silver Creek. So we're talking, it starts in Madison County and like Troy and St. Jacob, and it works its way all the way up to like Worden and Staunton. And it's a there's like 9 sub-watersheds in Madison County. And so Madison County actually researched that one first, and then they took all their research and they were able to get this $450,000 grant that they're hoping to put towards projects. Troy is the largest community in the Upper Silver Creek watershed. So we've reached out and said, hey, we want our share of the money. And so anyway, so we hope, and we've talked with them, they think that because of the erosion problem, again, it's an IEPA grant, so their IEPA is all about pollution in water, erosion control, silt control, things like that. And so we've kind of identified of all of our drainage problems in Troy, we think this one is most, and they have told us that they think that this is most appropriate to apply for monies for. And so they will fund portions of projects that are eligible. So like if we go and say, hey, we're going to fix this erosion here, they'll fund it at a 55-45 basis. So, you know, there might be $100,000 worth of this project that we can get $55,000 from this IEPA grant, and then the city's only on tap for $45,000. That should be a little detail.
So the city has applied on the residents' behalf in the Fairoaks subdivision for that grant. And I checked with them today, with Heartlands, and we don't know if we have it yet, long story short. They haven't announced, they're not ready to announce who's eligible and how much money. So we stand here today not in limbo, not knowing if the Heartlands Conservatory grant will cover part of the project or not. But we hope to find out shortly. To do the 48-inch diameter pipe, we need permanent easements. I forgot to mention that. to maintain our storm sewer system. To restore your backyards, we'll at least need temporary easements to get back there and run equipment. And there are no easements in the, that's another thing that we changed. We don't do this way on new subdivisions. There are no easements in your backyards that I'm aware of to maintain the drainage system that's back there. I call it the system because it's obviously conveying that water. In current subdivision, again, we would have an easement around a creek like that so that work could be done on it. So we'll need your permission to do anything. The third option we've looked at is construct a detention pond and put a 36-inch, because the water will be less, put a 36-inch pipe in backyards. And again, this is preliminary, but I estimated this at around $450,000 if we did that. Again, I have the same questions as the larger pipe, only maybe to a smaller degree. Would they allow us to put that kind of a pipe in an actual creek? And we would need permanent easements to maintain our storm sewer system. So those are the three options we've looked into. And the one that we're proposing to pursue and present to the homeowners today is option 2, which is a pond and potentially regrading the yards. Go ahead, Mary. So back to this aerial drawing again. This is where the detention pond would be proposed to be. It's in that yard. The front yard that fronts Troy Fountain Road that the balloons currently reside on. It would intercept the water from Meadowbrook and impound it and let it out slower. It will be designed to over-detain Meadowbrook. Because Fairoaks is a problem in itself. You don't have any detention yourselves either. So you're contributing to your own problem as well. It's just not all Meadowbrook. It's almost 50-50 as I showed with the areas. So the pond will be designed to over-detain this because, and let this water out even slower than it would have naturally before it was developed, because you're letting water in quicker within the stream. So we have to over-detain the Meadowbrook side. Does that make sense?
A question on the pond. Isn't that in probably the lowest area of that whole subdivision, where that's going to be, on the Boone's property?
Yes.
How confident are you that you can get it built deep enough without it filling up with water first?
Well, we'll get into that at the
Okay.
very end.
Okay.
I'll address that. That is where the pond, this is now north is changed north on you. We rotated the image. This is the Bloom's property, and this is where they reside, and this is the parcel in the front that we've got an option on. And that's where the white outline is where the pond would be. All this is preliminary. The shape probably will end up something like that, but we need to do more design. Go ahead, Mary. So that's a bird's eye view off the internet of that property. And then the next image shows what the pond would look like on a bird's eye view. This is where the water would come out and go down through Fairoaks.
Will that culvert change?
That culvert will not change.
That is huge.
But I'm not letting water,
Yeah.
it's huge, but it isn't the restricting pipe. The restricting pipe is going to be in the pond, at the pond outflow.
So therefore, that water will be in the pond instead of in your backyard. So
Yeah.
he owns the backyard, that's the house
Right where the water
to the
first comes
left
out.
of where the pipe, yeah, right there. And then there's a gentleman that called me, had to be in Washington DC tonight for work, but he owns the other side. And you guys have had, what, 4 feet of water,
Oh, yeah.
every bit of 4 feet of water.
It
'cause
it overwhelms that
Yeah.
pipe that goes across the road to the rest of you guys.
So right now, your backyards detain that water as it's pushing through that pipe, you know, to gain velocity, whereas this pond will detain it instead of your backyard actually detaining
So the size of that pipe doesn't, I mean, it's too big for what's going through there now. Hopefully we never see a rain, that thing's huge, you can walk right through it.
Yes, you-
But that pipe isn't the one that controls the flow going through. I'm gonna have another pipe upstream of that. That's gonna control it. Okay. And then there's that same, similar image to the one that showed the standing water running through there in 2015. That's an image from Troy Oak Island Road. These are images that we prepared, not just for this meeting, but to show the balloons what